Well, we have Aristo with us this morning, but the bandwidth is very low where he is, and the camera doesn't work. We've tried. He said there's not many people in the room there, but every once in a while we're getting a lot of interference, and I don't know what that is. As I said, most of the people there in the internet cafe are downstairs, not even on the same floor.
Well, there's like two people here, three people here. And it's not the voices, it's the actual connection, because I'm hearing your voice fade in and out as well.
Wow.
So,
Okay, well, anyway, Aristo's going to talk about what he's going to talk about.
who knows what that is. Okay. Well, hello, everybody. And I'm going to try to keep it civil this time. Somebody last time kind of made a comment that I was name calling and stuff like that. But I'd like to just say that, like Ron, I'm honest and open and transparent. And although I've practiced yoga for 30 years and esoteric stuff and what you might call advanced stuff in some ways, I'm an old school mystic. Not much in the new age. But although what I've learned is that authenticity doesn't mean always being civil. Civil disobedience sometimes occurs in interpersonal relationships. When we see something that's upsetting, sometimes we need to express it. And name calling is not something to which we resort. It's an expression basically of describing things. And usually when I use the word stupid, I refer to actions, not people. You mentioned that whole thing, calling people stupid. Well, the thing is, the actions are stupid, certain actions. For example, throwing yourself to the wolves just to prove that you're doing something, or for whatever reason, becoming a martyr is stupid. It's a waste of resources. It's a waste of yourself as a resource. It's a waste of yourself for yourself, and it's a waste of yourself for the world. So that being said, occasionally I will resort, quote unquote, to name calling if I want to express something. Now, that's also beside the point. There are several topics here that have been burning we can talk about. And most people are concerned with the way the world is going. Oh, what are we going to do and all of that? Well, I say that there's no way you can do anything about the world until you do everything you can about yourself. That is my premise, because you are the only resource you really have. You are the real resource. We've said it again and again. Human beings are the value. Human beings set the standard for the monetary systems, or whatever they may be. Not some stupid shiny metal. And not some paper, not some arbitrary assessment. It's human beings. So if you want to live in a world of true value and a fair financial system or whatever system, then you have to set yourself up as the value. And that means optimizing your resourcefulness. Okay, inner work is actually optimization of your resourcefulness, your own inner resourcefulness. It's not just feeling better about yourself. That's just one quality of it. And there's many, many paths, so to speak, but it's not about paths. It's about self-actualization. Self-actualization is the optimization of our own resourcefulness. If we want the world to change, we need to optimize our resourcefulness. We need to have a resourceful stance. We cannot be defeatist. The video that I made with you last time about feeling uplifted and using that upliftment in order to confront the crisis in your life, that is an example of optimizing resourcefulness. You become resourceful when you take the energy of upliftment, you take all of those moods and you apply them where they need to be applied. The thing is that we are so traumatized, we want to use that energy in order to recuperate. Yet at the same time, we are so brainwashed that recuperation becomes being routed, a route, escape, trying to hide, and because we're afraid, and we're afraid because there's an agenda of making us afraid. And we are afraid. Yeah, there's programming, but at the same time, we are afraid this programming goes far deeper than this social system. And so, if we can learn to deprogram and become authentic, not just telling the verbal truth, but becoming authentic emotionally with ourselves, becoming authentic as far as our desires are concerned. Because the desire, the human capacity for desire is the ultimate resource of manifestation. You want something, and that translates into motivation, and motivation translates into mobilization and creativity. Of course, we confuse desire in terms of anything that mobilizes us, even psychopathic sick things. So we confuse programming with desire. And they're not the same, because when you look within, programming represses desire. So anything or anyone that represses authentic desire, which is not the same as inauthentic desire or reactionary desire. That basically, sometimes we react to programming so much that we can end up hurting ourselves and other people in our crazy attempts to get away from the programming without changing the programming. Because the programming programs us not to change the programming. That's the thing. See, the programming protects itself. The primary program is to inhibit us from changing the program. So we need to basically get in touch with the symptoms of that primary program that says, thou shalt not change the program. Mm-hmm. Now, what is one example? Religion is one example. What do some monotheistic religions do when you try to change their programming? They threaten you with hell. They threaten you with exile from society. They threaten you even with death when it comes to, anything. They make you basically afraid to make a move because the worst punishments are heaped upon you. And these are arbitrary punishments. Somebody thought up the worst possible outcome, eternal damnation. There is no worst possible outcome than eternal damnation. And just put it on the program and said, if you change the program, you will be eternally damned. So think about the courage it takes to stand up to the program. And not just courage, conviction, creativity, resourcefulness. That is the key to standing up to the program. So what makes us resourceful? Well, some people call it inner work or inner focus. It is not about just upkeeping yourself or making yourself relaxed and coping. It is about maximizing your value on this planet, which is about contradicting what the establishment is telling us, that we're worthless and should be killed, and that we're crap, So to prove that we're not crap, the very motivation to optimize our resourcefulness to be sovereign, to be real, to be creative and valuable, not to other people, because the establishment interprets value in terms of its own so-called needs and desires, not in terms of intrinsic human nature and human destiny and natural potential or divinity or anything. Psychopaths are the ones that set the standards of value. And this is something we need to take away from them. One of the examples is gold. Many people say that. What the fuck? Excuse me, I will not be using four-letter words. What is...
Too late.
Yeah, too late. Oops, I'm going to hell. So, what is gold? I mean, what the heck, hell, shoot, whatever is gold? It's a shiny metal with a few technological applications. There's, you can have many other, cow dung has applications, fertilizer has applications, The thing is, it's a standard chosen by rulers. People walking hunters-gatherers did not go around carrying gold. Even in primitive societies today, you have strange large stones or whatever as some arbitrary means of exchange. The thing is that the human potential is the value, but you need a medium of exchange that represents human potential. But this is all fiat. Gold is another form of fiat currency. That's what I'm saying. It just has a programmed intrinsic value that's far more ancient than paper currency. And thus we take it to be, whatever.
Real.
And so it's real. Yeah, we take it to be real because it's older. That's the only reason. It's an older program. For the same reason that we take monotheistic religion to be more real, because it's older than technocracy. And the whole thing about you can't teach an old dog new tricks applies to humanity. And this is both a blessing, as I said, and a curse. So the idea here is the only way you can, in my opinion, the only way you can move to change society is to be able to have the resources. And we're talking about, okay, you want healing technologies, you want this technology and that technology and free energy and all of this. If people aren't resourceful, you can give them all the stuff they want, they're not going to do anything with it. They're just going to waste it because people have been programmed to be wasteful. Unless they're starving, and then they're going to be wasteful because they want to compensate for all the suffering. You know how a person is when you shut them up in a room and give them all these morality dictates, and then you let them loose and say, okay, it's, you're completely free. They'll go party. They'll go live it up. They'll get wasted. They'll hurt themselves possibly, because they want to make up for lost time or whatever. They want to compensate. They want to let loose. And the thing is, we cannot afford to do that in an indiscriminate manner. We need to be mature. But we can also not repress ourselves because we've been so traumatized that any kind of rational, legal, just society of order in order to keep everything in place in the name of not suffering is going to be taken as another form of repression, whether it is or not. So we have to be very careful about what is given to people in the name of whether they like it or not. If some people learn resourcefulness, there will be a true monetary system already there, even though it's unmanifest. What I mean is that human resourcefulness needs to become more the norm, in the sense of more people, not everyone, and not even the majority. But the thing is that human resourcefulness is contagious. We have to realize that the program is not neutral. It's nourished, it's pushed, it's funded, it's enforced constantly in our society. They don't just come in 5,000 years ago, program society, and leave us to our devices. They're constantly there, programming, reprogramming, enforcing, reinforcing, because the program is not that strong. It has to constantly be maintained. So human resourcefulness, however, once it sets in, it connects with the environment, and the feedback of living keeps it going and nourishes it. You don't have to do artificial maintenance like you have to do with the matrix. Look at how much material resource is expended just to keep up the matrix.
Maintain the status quo.
Exactly. Because if you don't maintain the status quo, we will revert to freedom. If all of a sudden they stop tampering with elections, they stop the chemtrails, they stop the fucking illegalities, they just let people say express their needs, and other people fulfill those needs, and people doing what they do. You don't even have to retrain people. It's not about people. It's about authority enforcing the program constantly. Look at the cops in the U.S. They are not hiring policemen now with IQs above 100 or something, or above 70, or I don't know what. They're constantly hiring people who are not fit to be police officers. And it's usually the older ones who are more moral and whatever, and a few are and constitutional. They are hiring people on purpose. They are doing this everywhere. The TSA, whatever. They make all of these things, from the justice, the doctors, the education system. Everything is geared to not just keep the status quo, but progress it into a far worse version than it was before. So we have to look at the situation and say, well, what does that tell me? Not neutrally or objectively, but with our own agenda. Our agenda is, how does that reinforce my resourcefulness? Okay? And it tells me, and it says, look, if the program was that powerful, they would not need to keep it up. They would not need to put Christianity forth. For example, Catholicism says contraception is evil. Have children. And now they're saying there's too many children. Catholicism was wrong. We got to kill you all. They would not have to do that if the program, look at the computer programs, 1.0, 1.5, 2.0, 3.0. They're constantly doing that. It's not about improving the program. Is because humanity is too adaptable to their inherent resourcefulness. We have an inherent drive that is not a program. And that's one thing I disagree with the Wingmakers people. Well, not the stuff about the heart and all of that, although there's a few things there, but I read some of the interviews, with
Did you read fifth interview with Dr. Neruda?
I read part of it.
I'm about 3/4 of the way through it now.
And there's one thing that I disagree with, that is that everything is basically viewed from a technocratic, techno-scientific viewpoint. He's talking about the merger of religion and science. And I'm saying that science is about quantifying everything. Science always quantifies. It quantifies patterns, relationships, everything. So you cannot quantify God. You cannot turn it into, and he also said that the more we know and the more we evolve, the less free we become, because our options become narrow. He said that in the first interview. And basically that the so-called, central intelligence is programming us. So constantly there are these Illuminatus type trends, scientific type trends that aren't even scientific, because all science does is observe, record, and quantitatively evaluate things. It does not philosophize. Any scientist worth their merit will tell you we are not philosophers. We evaluate and we make equations in order to describe what we observe and generalize the patterns of what we describe. So trying to eliminate all of these areas and essentially put the human heart in a certain context of behaviorist modes, like just say, okay, focus on gratitude, focus on love, focus on compassion. You cannot force these things until you become chaotically genuine, in the sense of looking at your desires. You need to have a meaningful context of life on your own terms in order to balance yourself out, in my honest opinion. I believe all of these things are too shiny. A lot of these new age spiritual type, are spiritually polarized, as I would call it. They're very shiny, they're very chrome, they're very polished, they sound good. However, when we go to practice them, not many people can do it because they're oppressive. They are. You can't just tell somebody to be compassionate and expect them to just do it. That's programming, when you will yourself to be something. There is a sense of a goal. Okay, I desire to be compassionate. That's different. You desire to be compassionate, and you feel all that blocks you from being compassionate, which is your self-hatred or the pain of the world and all of that. So part of you is there already that is loving. Everybody has that part. Otherwise, we wouldn't feel uplifted ever, or we wouldn't be interested in spirituality, or we wouldn't be interested in improvement and creativity. We would have no ideals. The very fact that any given individual, I'm not speaking about everybody, zombies or whatever, doesn't matter. You know who you are. You know, I'm speaking to those who know who they are, to the point that if you have ideals, if you believe in creativity, if you have experienced passion, compassion, love in your life in any shape or form, there is a part of you that has an open channel to the divine and that loves you for yourself. However small, however sparky or fleeting, it is there. That is the spark that kindles everything else. You maintain that spark and fan the flame, you know, in the presence of everything you accept about yourself that is not good, then all that you don't accept about yourself is eventually going to come to the surface. You're going to be feeling it, and slowly it's going to transform. And it's very, very difficult. And that is the process of transforming your victimhood, your victimization. You cannot transform the shadow itself, the aggressive shadow, the psychopathic shadow, until you transform your victimization. And then when you do, you are challenged to refrain from polarizing, because when you do, you will forgive yourself for being a victim. It comes naturally. It's not like I forgive myself. There's so much formality in spirituality. You know, that's like the Victorian, you know, relationship zone. You know, how a man would go up to a woman and go to her house and ask her father if he could see her, and all kinds of formal zones that were of courtship. And yet all these marriages were cold, and the love was just, you know, not real. It was just all this formality that looked good and gave the impression of an ordered society, but it wasn't real. So then, but underneath, everybody was in the brothels. So you had all these poor prostitutes starving to death, you know, having abortions, I don't know what, in the back alleys, because all of these proper husbands needed an outlet for their frigid wives, because everything was pristine, spit polished, nice and chrome. So I say, be careful of an ordered society, of the concept of order, because psychopaths use the concept of order too, you know. And we all
misuse it.
Yes, they use it, because order basically, without fluidity, without spontaneity, when you emphasize it to get away from what you're afraid of, it becomes prison. Because there are so many people who are not psychopaths that live an ordered life, and they're what some psychologists call anal retentive. You know, this tendency is there, especially in Western society. Look at who the psychopaths are trying to kill off. They're trying to kill off the complete opposite of anal retentive. The Africans, the, you know, South Americans, the you know, all the dark peoples. All the peoples with cultures of bodily movement and who are supposedly sensual and into the earth and all of that stuff, you know. Whereas the spit chrome techno polish aspect is being promoted, because these people are afraid of touching. They're afraid of, and of course they're all abused. So then any kind of sense of organic touching is, you know, what they fear. And this fear is in the program, and it's transferred to us. So all of us, there is that danger of order, you know, and we say we use it or misuse it, but we don't really know completely. I mean, one might say, well, all I want to do is stop suffering, you know, of course, but it's not, you can't do that, because what you need to do is heal suffering. It's a completely different thing. Stopping suffering can be done by killing somebody, euthanizing them, or numbing them, you know. However, healing suffering means you enliven them. Their resourcefulness is activated. Their organic nature, their non-linear nature. So when I see an esoteric system, this whole ETs thing, it's really funny, because they all look like Illuminati, Star Trek, you know, scenarios. That's what I got from the Wingmakers thing. It was like somebody took Star Trek, and they even said, oh, this sounds like a science fiction movie. Well, you know, it's really funny, because Gene Roddenberry according to Alex Jones at least, was into the Illuminati philosophy. And you know, presented certain ideals. There's a whole bunch of Egyptian symbolism in all of these shows, but it's all technocratic and anal retentive, spit polished, pristine, you know, disciplinary, all kinds of things that are not really sensuality is talked about, but it's missing. So all of these kinds of futuristic zones reflect off of some Atlantean archetype that is basically an attempt to create civilization by getting away from nature, but in the sense of our own bodies. So resourcefulness is embodiment and true grounding. Now, I'm not criticizing this in the sense of let's do away with it. I'm just saying we need to be aware of it as Westerners because it's part of Western programming, especially Western European, Northwestern European programming. It's the whole techno culture, the whole, you know, antiseptic culture, you know, is part of and they found, doctors have found, and not the establishment ones so much, that one of the reasons that native peoples who sit around and do not get sick in the jungle with all the dirt and the microbes and everything, they don't get sick because they're dirty. They don't get sick because they always, you know, if they kill an animal, for example, to eat it, right, they will put their hands in the animal's guts and their crap, and they will just, you know, touch each other. And the little kids as well, they'll touch each other, and the germs basically get shared, but they're not germs, it's the gut flora of the animal that actually gets transferred and enhances their immune system. And we go, oh, that's sick, and maybe it is. We're not into that. But I'm just saying, look at how nature works. You know, you have the healthiest people in the world. A friend of mine told me about some African country, you know, Burundi or something, where there were all these massacres. You know, they massacred all these people, and there was starvation. So there was one family that only had some tea. That's all they grew around there. So they have this fermented drink. I think it's called kombucha or something like that. It's a fermented tea. And that's all they had, just this fermented tea. Everybody was dying of starvation. And they were thriving because all they had was tea that was rotting, you know, but with benign bacteria. So if you can just, you know, have some, it has all kinds of nutrients, all kinds of antioxidants, and all you need is a little bit of calories and a little bit of protein, and you're fine. So, you know, that tells you about how little we really need to thrive in this world in a natural environment. We don't need elaborate systems. However, we also have enough technology now as we are. If we would only be deprogrammed, we can creatively organize that technology. We don't need new medicine. We only need new medicine if you can just stop the poisoning, if you can just stop the fucking killing, because this is not medicine that the establishment has. It's a fucking slaughterhouse. You know, it's a kill zone. You know, that's what needs to stop. And the only way to stop it, in my opinion, is to focus on resourcefulness, because when you become resourceful, in however way you creatively can, I'm not using the how right now, that might be for another video, then you're able to transfer that resourcefulness. You're able to communicate it, or you're able to inspire others to also be resourceful, because you cannot turn it into a one-size-fits-all deal. There are some basic things we can each communicate and share. However, everybody has an innate sense of their own resourcefulness. Programming is designed to inhibit that. Just as GMOs are designed to destroy the immune system, programming, matrix programming, is designed to destroy our own instinctive sense of resourcefulness. So in some ways, somebody might listen to this video and say, look, he's stating the obvious. Yes, I am. Because programming allows us to look at the obvious superficially, but the obvious doesn't seem to affect us. We turn it into a cliche. Or we just keep sending each other these little, you know, like on Facebook, you have all kinds of little nice bits of wisdom with little pictures on them and stuff that people send each other. But it's like, look, If you want to be resourceful, take one of these and make it your life purpose. You know, if you just take one of those bits of wisdom and truly get into it, because it's not easy to apply any one of these bits of wisdom. You can't just say, okay, I'm like this. Most people have a billion of these things, and it's like, oh, how nice, you know. Wouldn't it be nice? Why aren't people like this? Well, if you just take one and explore it, like a yogi or a mystic would take one mantra or one idea and meditate on it, you know, you can find out why it's so difficult to truly embody it and what it would mean to actually begin expressing it in terms of your natural desire. And then you will find that this bit of wisdom is connected to that bit of wisdom, is connected to the other bit of wisdom, and they form, like you said, they're not separate. They're all interconnected. And your creativity can become resourceful with them. And you can actually move to take advantage of opportunities that are everywhere. There's always opportunity. It may not seem viable, or people want silver bullets. Oh, it's not making enough of a change. Well, you can't. Beggars can't be choosers. Enough of a change is in the eye of the beholder. How do you really know? You want things to change so you don't have to sweat anymore. But I'm sorry. At this point, we are so programmed that we do need to sweat, but on our own terms, in my opinion, in my honest opinion. So we do question things, and of course, when I say I'm not anti-order, okay, but at the same time, the Hebrews have the tree of life, and they have the pillar of justice and the pillar of mercy, okay? And they said that their religion basically goes overboard with justice. They admitted that the Hebrew God is basically a God of justice, tempered with a little bit of mercy. No, it should be the opposite. You should have mercy tempered with a little bit of justice. You know, the way our society is. With too much justice, that word, because the reason we have so much injustice is because there's so much emphasis on keeping things on control. Justice implies control. That's why it's called the pillar of severity. It's not the same as fairness. You know, when you have a balance between justice, which is basically things need to be a certain way, structure, and mercy, which is fluidity and allowance, then you have fairness. You know, this is basically a kind of a concept. It's like the Greek words with love. There's like all these words that mean love. English has one word. So there's a little bit of confusion. So what we call justice, basically, I would say it has three words at least, and maybe we want to look for more to understand the ramifications. Mercy is another word that is really what is usually called justice. Mercy is also just, isn't it? It's just to be merciful. It's not unjust to be merciful. It's a fluid, non-linear dynamic that may not seem rational. But when you're merciful to somebody and forgive them under the right circumstances, in the right way, so to speak, in a healthy way, then you're actually causing greater fairness in the world. You're actually improving everything. The structure becomes reinforced. Things become more naturally ordered, because order and chaos in nature are interchangeable. The greatest ordered systems of life are the most chaotic systems of life, where things are not structured to the point. If you try, you know, you do not see androids in nature. Even though Western society is mechanistic, you do not see androids in nature. You see these unpredictable, chaotic, liquid, messy systems, yet that result in great beauty. The sense of beauty. The Illuminati, the scientists, they cannot generate beauty. They keep talking about elegance of equations. The universe is a bunch of equations. No, it is not. Equations cannot even begin to tap into the polymorphous fluidity of true life. I don't care what you say, because you can never have this equals that in the sense of quantifiably, you know, being the same. Because everything changes, you know, constantly. So you never have this equals that, because everything changes. Everything is interconnected. There is no two sides of an equation. You know, it's all one thing. It's all one tapestry. And it's all interconnected, interpenetrating, interfluid. And that's just a philosophical abstraction until we gain our own sense of our own sense of resourcefulness. So one last thing. Again, I'm just saying, let's look at the thing of justice. Mercy, justice, and fairness are three words that represent the same thing. Maybe mercy is not justice per se, but they are three words that represent the same thing. But that's a whole other story and probably the topic for another video. Thank you so much for being patient with me.
Yeah, I've thought of different things for potential titles, but I'm going to have to listen to it again to come up with one.
Yeah,
I'm really not sure. So
Yeah.
anyway, thank you, and just to let everybody know, I'm not in jail. But of course, you can see that.
Okay.
And I will talk about that in the next video.
I'm glad. Okay,
All right.
namaste.
Namaste. And your picture never came up.
No, I know.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.